You may have blocked that person out of your mind, but remember back in your elementary school days when that bully tried to steal your lunch money? Brock Child and Youth Studies professor Tony Volk sees parallels between Russia's Vladimir Putin and that classic schoolyard bully. Dr. Volk, like the bully, Putin right now is choosing to attack a very weak victim right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the defining characteristic of a bully, is that they choose a target who's weaker than them. And certainly, I think the whole world expected this to be a pretty fast affair with Russia rolling over Ukraine really quickly.
When Ukraine decided to step up and defend themselves and gather more forces from basically their everyday citizens, I think that really surprised Putin.
I think it did. It's when we talk about childhood bullying, the most commonly recommended response is for kids to fight back. And it's the most effective response, but it's also the worst. And what I mean by that is it has the biggest chance of ending the bullying. It also has the biggest chance of escalating the bullying. So it was a risky move for Ukraine to stand up and fight against a much stronger opponent who, as we've seen, is not afraid to hit below the belt as far as attacking civilians and causing damage to the country.
Thus far, NATO has decided not to step in. What happens if someone does, like NATO, step in and help protect the person who's being bullied?
Yeah, so again, real parallels with kids. There's different kinds of defending, we call it, against the bullying. You can directly intervene, which is physically, interjecting yourself. Or you can offer support to the victim after the bullying has happened, or you can target the bully's reputation and say what you did was really unfair. And I think NATO's been doing well with the last two in supporting Ukraine with humanitarian and some kinds of weapons. And then they have been really effective, I think the whole world, minus a couple of exceptions, in condemning Russia. I mean, Vladimir Putin has succeeded in unifying European opinion, which is a feat in and of itself.
Tony, the schoolyard bully, even though he's maybe bullying somebody for lunch money, it's not really about the money. It's about his or her ego. And you feel ego is driving Putin in this invasion.
Yeah, and that's one of the traits of bullies, is that they're arrogant, that they really see themselves as better than others. And it's certainly the case with Putin, that he sees Russia as being better than it is, that he is its chosen leader who will restore its glory. And that's one of the things that makes this a really difficult situation to diffuse, because it's not based on what Putin usually does, which is rational ideas, but his ego is really tied into this.
Going back to the schoolyard situation, what is often the best way to deal with the bully?
The best way is to deal with it on multiple fronts, because you have a situation where there is this power imbalance. So the victim fighting back can be helpful if they are supported by other people, by other allies, which NATO is doing. If you create a climate where you don't tolerate this kind of bullying, so this would be sanctions that are being laid down against him. And when you try and remove the benefits that he's getting, one of which is he wants to be the savior. He wants this to save his ego. But if the Russian people stand up and say, you're not a savior, you're a destroyer, then you're really removing a lot of the incentive for this behavior.
That often happens in the schoolyard, where the bully's friends finally realize, or suddenly realize, that they don't like what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been shown that if the bully isn't the most popular kid, that's a really effective treatment, is for the more popular kids to say, knock it off, this isn't cool. The problem is often bullies are really popular kids. And so you need to have a really strong group response and some really powerful people weighing in. And I think it's been nice to see that from NATO and the United States.